Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's message. I'm Eric, the lead pastor of South Mountain Community Church. Thank you for taking just a bit of your time to be with us today. We exist for one reason, and that's to help as many people as possible take their next step towards becoming fully devoted and fully delighted followers of Jesus Christ. And I know that for so many people, church and even religion can be messy and oh so complicated, but it doesn't have to be that way. Here you can belong before you believe. So our hope is that your first visit with us is enjoyable, meaningful, and unlike the church experiences of your past. We also think that the best way to experience delight is with others in person. So SMCC is about more than just a Sunday sermon. We have 5 locations for you to choose from where you can connect with people in authentic community. We want every message you hear to engage your head, your heart, and your hands for a life of full delight. So with all of that in mind, enjoy today's message.
Amen. Thank you, Heather. This house right here, this church built on Jesus as well. And I'm so grateful that you're here today. If we haven't met, I'm Eric. I get to serve now, only in the last year, as the lead pastor here at SMCC. And this is an exciting season for us because today we begin our month-long celebration of the 25-year anniversary of SMCC. And I just want to celebrate that. Yeah. And really what we're celebrating is God. We are celebrating His faithfulness in building His kingdom and His church here in Utah for us and with us and through us. And so that's what we are celebrating. And so over the next 4 weeks, with a small break for the Utah holiday, we're going to be remembering the past, that's today, celebrating what's happening in the present, that is next week, and then the 29th, that's kind of the finale of the celebration, where we will be together preparing for our future as a church. And so for 25 years, we have had the same mission statement. If you're brand new, I want you to know this, and I want you to maybe remember this, memorize this as quickly as you can. And for some of you who have been here for 25 years, you can recite this with me. I don't expect you to. But at SMCC, our mission is this. We exist to help as many people as possible take their next step towards becoming fully devoted and fully delighted followers of Jesus. And so those two things, devotion and delight together, are so important to who we are as a group of people and what God is doing among us. Now, over 25 years, we have seen that mission realized. We've seen the dreams that we've had for our church fulfilled and realized. We've met goals that, we didn't expect to meet. We've seen life change far beyond our wildest expectations. We've seen growth that, we can hardly handle, and all that has happened over 25 years. But as you look at the world, as I look at the world, I realize that things are changing quickly. As I look at the state of Utah, I realize that this place needs us, needs our presence. As I look out, I see people who are yet to have joy in Jesus, which tells me and should tell all of us that we have work to do over the next 25 years. And it's our privilege, our joy to begin that work here and now. And so as we begin to look at the past and celebrate the present and look to the future, I want you to know that in the last Sunday, the last service in the last Sunday of October, we're going to be talking about this journey that your leaders have embarked on to prepare for us a multi-year vision that will take us really into the year 2030. We are beginning this whole year, a preparation process of really figuring out what does 2030 look like for us as a church that takes us from where we are to where we'll be 5, 6, 7 years from now. A plan that really is a refreshed plan, a revised plan with a whole bunch of initiatives that see us continue to spread God's fame in Utah and impact lives. And so I want to invite you just even now to begin praying for the leaders of SMCC, the staff and the elders as we begin to craft that strategic vision that will take us all the way up to the year 2030. You'll hear more about that as this year unfolds. But all of that vision and today's anniversary, the theme for all of it is this theme: welcome to the party. And some of you are like, I don't think church can be a party. And some of you are like, I don't want a party. I went to a party once in college. I've been sick, since. And so I'm not sure that this is all for me. Well, hang with me. I want to unpack this for a moment. At SMCC, the gospel, which is the announcement of the arrival of Jesus and the good news that He brings into our world, that is our delight. It's our joy, as we sang in the song, it's our gladness. We want this to be one of the happiest places you could ever attend. The gospel is our delight. Because all through the Bible, if you were to pay careful attention, you would see the joy of our God, the God of the universe, overflowing to his creation, inviting more and more people, as many people as possible, to experience joy and a relationship with him. And that relationship is often described as a party. If you read the Old Testament carefully, you would see feasts, you would see festivals, you would see gladness, you would see loud expressions of people enjoying God and his people. If you would move into the New Testament, in Luke chapter 15, you would see Jesus talk about the rejoicing that happens in heaven when just one person takes the next step to know Jesus. In Luke 15, Jesus tells the story of some prodigal sons. And when they return home, in fact, one refused the party, but one returned to it. That father threw a party. Let the celebration, let the party begin. And then if you look to the last book of the Bible, we're gonna look at all this in this series, Welcome to the Party. The last book of the Bible, Revelation chapter 19, we see what's described as the wedding supper of the Lamb, the wedding feast of King Jesus. And in that celebration, there's a multitude of people worshiping. That's a crowd. It is as loud as peals of thunder. It is so loud. It is a celebration. There's incredible food. Jesus is at the center of it. People are celebrating him. It absolutely is a party. And so welcome to the party. It is not just one day on our calendar in the month of October in 2023. It is a way of life for people who are enjoying their good God. So if you don't see Christianity as a party yet, I hope you're here for this entire series because I want you to see it as such. But as we build to all of that, we're gonna start with the past. And one of the reasons we remember the past is because of this. It's the first fill-in if you wanna take some notes. Remembering the past, it strengthens us in the present and it motivates us for the future. Remembering the past, it strengthens us in the here and now, and it motivates us for the future. This is the nature of remembrance. And so with our mission of as many people as possible, fully devoted, fully delighted, FD, we just want to invite as many people into the party of devotion and delight as possible. And to do that, I think we need to talk a little bit about the past. In the Old Testament, right in the middle, there's a poetic book called the Book of Psalms. And in the book of Psalms, there are many, many psalms, these poetic pieces of literature that invite us to reflect upon and remember the past. And one of those psalms is Psalm 77, written by Asaph, not as popular of a psalmist as King David, but Asaph draws us back into the past when he says this, I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all your works and meditate on all of your mighty deeds. And so for the Israelite community, this meant remembering history, remembering the moment that God brought them out of Egypt, the moment he parted the Red Sea, the moment he brought them through the Jordan into the promised land. They were to reflect on all of that because history was proof, it was evidence of God's goodness, that through the highs and lows, he never failed them as he has never failed us. And so Asaph wanted them to remember, and by extension, Asaph would want us to remember. God would want us to remember our past. Why? Because it strengthens us in the here and now, and it motivates us with hope for the future. And as a family, Carissa and I like to remember the past every once in a while. In fact, just the other day, we pulled up an old picture. I thought I'd bring it because I just want you to see what it looks like to remember the past. This is the day Carissa graduated from college. This was a tough time for us. We were on a 5-year plan to have no kids. That lasted like 18 months. And so Nora eventually showed up. Carissa's in school full-time. I'm working full-time as a youth pastor. Pizza and dodgeball, it was very difficult. I'm just kidding. Youth pastors do good work. But this was a tough season for us. I mean, long nights. Oh my gosh, we were exhausted. And the other day, Carissa and I pulled up this picture to remember that God got us through this. That through all the fighting and the tension in the marriage at this time, he also connected us through it all. It was a very special season as I celebrated my wife getting to this stage in her life. And as we look back at a picture like this, you probably have pictures like this in your home. They're the type of pictures that bring you peace. They're the type of pictures that bring you joy, sort of bring solidarity to the moment, solidifies the relationship. We made it through that before. We can make it through this now. And as we remember the history of SMCC today, SMCC, it is like that. It is like that as well. Now, Asaph poetically tells us to remember the past, but there's an Old Testament book that does that in the form of narrative. And so I want to kind of take us back to that now. I think this historical moment in the book of Joshua is the type of moment that Asaph was wanting the Israelites to recall. So we've seen it poetically in the Psalms. Let's look at it now in a narrative form in the book of Joshua. The historical setting will emerge as I simply read. Joshua chapter 4. When the whole nation had finished crossing the Jordan, the Lord said to Joshua, choose 12 men from among the people, one from each tribe, and tell them to take up 12 stones from the middle of the Jordan, from right where the priests are standing, and carry them over with you and put them down at the place where you stay tonight. Stones from the riverbed, the clear evidence that God parted the river, brought them through. So Joshua called together the 12 men he had appointed from the Israelites, one from each tribe. He said to them, go over before the ark of the Lord your God into the middle of the Jordan. Each of you is to take up a stone on his shoulder, according to the number of the tribes of the Israelites, to serve as a sign among you. And in the future, when your children ask you, what do these stones mean? How did they get here? Why are we here? What is this building even all about? When your children begin to ask about the past, tell them that the flow of the Jordan was cut off before the ark of the covenant of the Lord. When it crossed the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan were cut off. These stones are to be a memorial to the people of Israel forever. Forever they will help Israel, help you remember what God has done. Now, I just want to press pause briefly on the celebration today. Perhaps you were watching the news yesterday and what Israel is going through now. If you're unaware, maybe check that out. Pay attention to the news today. And I just want you to know that every Monday morning at 7 a.m., right in the lobby, we pray. We'll be praying for that group of people tomorrow. Joshua wants people to remember what God has done to Israel. And so what happens? Skipping ahead to verse 21. So here's what happens. Joshua leads out in this. He said to the Israelites, in the future, when your descendants ask their parents, what do these stones mean? Tell them, Israel crossed the Jordan on dry ground. For the Lord your God dried up the Jordan before you until you had crossed over. The Lord your God did to the Jordan what he had done to the Red Sea when he dried it up before us until we had crossed over. He did this so that all the peoples of the earth might know. He did this so that people might know what? That the hand of the Lord is powerful. That God has powerfully worked, as Psalm 77 talked about, his mighty deeds on display, and so that you might always fear the Lord your God. So the leaders of the Israelite community, they were supposed to help people remember. The families, the moms and dads, they were supposed to help their children remember all that God had done. Why? Well, because it's easy to forget. And when we forget the beginning of a story, we are at risk for making some of the mistakes that they made, but mistakes we don't need to make. We're at risk for believing lies about the present, forgetting the truth of what happened in the past that can guide us actually in the present. The power of the past can be dissolved and we're not good at remembering it. And so we need to be able to celebrate the past. We need this. We must not forget God's story. We must not forget God's story. And so if we were to look at what God is doing around the world, we would see that God's at work. He's writing an incredible story, a story that we must not forget. And if we were to narrow in the focus of that to Utah, we could narrow in to 1997. We could narrow in to about 1998, when one family decided to embark on a journey to come here. And so for many of us, we weren't there on that day. There were many in Joshua's day that needed to remember. That's what the stones were there to help them do, because there were people who didn't witness it firsthand. And so for many of us, we weren't there the day that God began to write this story. Every good story has a beginning, and to understand the full story, you need to know what happened in the beginning. And so I got with Pastor Paul a couple weeks ago, and we went back to the very beginning of this story. And so maybe you showed up in the year 2015, like I did, or maybe you showed up in 2020, or maybe 2021, 2022, post-pandemic, where you had to leave the place you called home to come here, and you're wondering what this story is like. I want to share that with you now, because it's my hope that you all can find yourself in the story. That 25 years has been written, but there's 25 years in front of us. And this story includes each of us. And so as you watch this, I hope maybe you could find yourself in the story. So turn your attention to the screen and let's go back to the beginning of the story of SMCC.
So one day, Paul, you wake up and decide there's got to be something else.
Well, that day happened right around turning 40, and you asked the question, a lot of people ask this question, what do I want to do with the 25 years I have left in my life, my working life? And I knew I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. And I started to dream about a church that was 100% filled with truth and 100% filled with grace. Grace and truth type of church. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't know where. And then, of course, I had visited Scott McKinney, and he told me that there's this place called Draper with your name on it. And Scott was a pastor and still is at Centerpoint Church. And he just said, we need you. And then he talked about Draper as a place with 22,000 people and not one Protestant church. That got to me.
Wow.
Like, that's not really right.
Yeah.
That all these people have one option.
Something should be done.
Something should be
And you were
done.
willing to do it. What were you feeling as you unpacked for the first time in this brand new place?
Well, there was a significant fear of failure, balanced with excitement of trying to do something that I knew would be hard. And I was ready. I wanted to do this. It was my pleasure to try to spread the fame of Jesus Christ in Utah. And so I was ready to go. And yet I knew this was probably going to be the biggest challenge of my life.
Paul, what's it like coming back to this place?
Well, it does bring back memories. We actually tried to get a Bible study started, and so I decided we're going to print out some invitations. And actually, I never had a conversation with anybody that said, yes, we would come.
Remind me about the story where Jenny went 3 doors and said, I quit.
We decided to knock on the doors and have
These ones right
conversations
here?
with people. Man, we got doors slammed in our face, and Jenny's like, I'm out. Each day, I would take the boys to school. I'd get a little something at the 7-Eleven and come back here. And there's a stream right here. And this was the place that literally I begged God to give me an opportunity to meet people. I didn't know what else to do except just ask God, give us a start, help me.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do, guide me, whatever. And so this is a very meaningful place for me.
Wow.
We just did anything and everything we could to meet people. One of the things we did was a VBS at the Draper Amphitheater. We had, I think, 10 kids or something like that. I sat at Draper Days for 2 days and had a table there and tried to meet people. Then we did an information meeting at the golf course, and we'd sent out 5,000 postcards.
One of the things you taught me early on when I got here is a whatever it takes mentality,
Yeah.
whatever it takes. And you had that in the early days. And so you and the family were building a house here in Draper, and that's where the first practice service was.
We had the band set up on that wall,
Okay.
and the chairs out here, and I think we had to open the garage doors because it was too loud with them closed. So
Yeah.
that's why our neighbors knew we were
Yeah.
about ready to start a church.
I remember my sons being child care workers up in the house. I remember the piano and the little drum over there, and about 2 rows of 5 chairs each over here. And you up there practicing your sermon.
Yeah.
When you're in a service today and you see the people and the music and all of that, the life change, do you think back to this?
Not so much anymore, but when I used to, it would bring tears to my eyes. That makes me cry when I think, look what God has done.
Paul, we're on 123rd now. Every great story has chapters, and this is like the next chapter. Why?
Well, I think it became very clear to us that the churches that really explode and do well here in Utah have a home. And so we rented this space, and it became the catalyst for a whole lot of growth. You think about a farmer. A farmer prepares the soil. I want you to think to yourself, 2,000 square feet. Most houses are bigger than that. So we were crammed in here. It sat 50 in the big room. Pretty quickly, we went to 2 services.
Okay.
So in 1 year, we grew 150 to 150.
Wow. And there's people still around attending today
Yep.
who attended here.
Yep.
That's incredible. Was it a surprise to you that it was only 18 months and you needed something new?
100%.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what happened next? Where do we go?
I saw on the side of a warehouse, sublet, and then the number. And that was our new location.
Let's go see it.
Yep.
You're coming up on Easter of 2000, right?
Right. This was going to be our new home, and I think we had over 300 people at that first service in this warehouse. So I remember being here 60 nights in a row, and I had other guys showing up as many times as I was there. I just knew that if we didn't get in by Easter, we'd really miss a great opportunity to bring people in. And so Sunday went great, great crowd. We had sent out postcards again for that. I went to bed Sunday afternoon and really did not get out of bed until, I guess, all day Monday. Tuesday, we get a phone call and Jenny says, Tracy's on the phone. Tracy was our volunteer bookkeeper, secretary, everything. And I said, oh, okay, well. And Jenny's saying, I think she's crying. And she said, remember that that grant that you wrote an application for? We just got a check for $50,000, which today doesn't sound like that much, but our bank account was at 0. And it totally bailed us out. It brings me to tears today because it was incredible, the timing on that. And so it came through. I thought they had lost track of us, that they had given up on us, but we got to 50,000, and that just sent us going crazy.
Wow. Wow.
Hello.
Hey there.
We are from South Mountain Community Church. This used to be a church building.
Yes.
And we're just filming a 25th anniversary video and showing all the different places we've been and all that kind of stuff. Can we
Just walk
get
around
a
real
little
quick.
bit of
Would that be all
footage?
right? So, Paul, were these walls here when you
They've
guys
been
started?
moved. They've
Okay.
been moved. And this was the entrance to the church. Yeah, so it's massively bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. From
This
the,
is about 6,500 square feet.
Mm-hmm.
Got the posts, but yeah, that's our stage.
the stage is still here.
The stage is still here.
Wow.
Moved in at 2000, moved out at 2012.
Okay.
That's when we moved to our present Draper facility.
Wow.
We had a lot of people driving from the South Jordan Riverton area.
Yeah.
So we said, let's go out there.
Yeah.
And so we started that campus. And we liked that feel better than church planting. Campusing seemed to be a winner concept.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's go see where that
Okay.
started.
Yeah.
So, the first campus, not a church plant, but the first campus, set up and tear down here. What was it like speaking while people are jogging around you?
Yeah, they wouldn't close down the workout facility. And so I just had to do it.
It's just an example of whatever it takes has always been part of the story. So the seats were right in here.
Yeah. We set up with the stage on the far wall there, and you can see people can jog and work out while
Yeah.
the service was going on. I've had people tell me they started coming to South Mountain by working out here.
Wow.
So about at the same time, we had gone to a Purpose-Driven Church conference, and lo and behold, we won the Purpose-Driven Church Award in 2005. And a couple months later, I get a phone call from a guy named Tom Mertz. I love St. George, and I felt like this is a place that's really unreached by a quality evangelical witness. And I thought the people here need a great church. And so I was excited to meet you. And then I just thought, man, I have just met one of the greatest learners I've ever met.
One day, Paul and I were sitting in the living room, and it was probably February
or March of 2008, and you said, what would you think about actually becoming part of SMCC and joining the family? And I was absolutely floored. I was humbled by it, to the idea that you would invite us in like that. I got PTSD from this building. I'm glad to be out of it, but man, this was a church incubator. So
Our first church plant actually came to an end, and we were invited into the situation, asked if we wanted to kind of participate in whatever was next. Well, we decided to make it a campus, and we hired a campus pastor. That went for about 3 years. Then it actually just didn't work.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people went to our South Jordan campus, but that also gave us the opportunity to invite those people meeting with Pastor Alberto, our international campus people, to come out here to West Jordan. And man, has that ever been a fantastic thing.
Yeah, so they're meeting here now. It is our 5th campus at this point, and they're seeing rapid growth. So by this point, we had gotten our legs under us with multi-site, and you had dreamt about coming to Utah County, and that's when you and I connected. It was in 2015 that I moved here. I remember so much of that season, but we found this warehouse. You and I drove together and found this space, signed a lease, and went to work on the construction process.
Yeah, I felt strongly like this is a good location for this.
Absolutely. And so for me, you know, I moved here at 28, packed up and left home. And, you know, so much of your story inspired me. And I kind of had a whatever it takes mentality like you had.
Absolutely.
And that made us a great team.
I knew coming to Utah County was not for the faint of heart. And so that kept us very sober, very reticent to go too quickly. But man, am I glad that we came here.
So the year's 2016, you've been here for over a decade. I mean, working hard, and then you move into this facility. What was going through your heart?
man, well, initially, fear and trepidation, because you don't even know if everything's gonna work. For me personally, I'm absolutely floored, like, to be able to be a part of this. I don't think there's anything quite like this, even in St. George. And we know there's a lot of great churches here, but people are just beating down the doors to get in here. And that, like I said, to be a part of that is just so humbling.
Can't wait to see what's to come over the next 20, 25 years. So now, you know, with you living on the hill, driving past this probably every day, now that you're retired, thinking back to the apartment that you started in, what is this, just a testament to God's goodness? How does that sit with you?
It is gratifying, but I think the strongest feeling I have is the feeling of it's been passed on successfully and the best is yet to come. I really feel that way. I really do. It's someplace I want to attend and serve. I don't have to work there. It's actually that type of sensation for me of, yeah, great, fantastic, what's next?
So I got here in 2015. I know so many people who are at our church have shown up in the last few years. I want to honor the people that came before me. We stand on their shoulders, and I'm so grateful for all the hard work with you and hundreds of others. What do you want to say to the people who are here and have only been here for a few years?
Yeah, there's a good chance they're probably sitting next to some very generous people and people that have laid a great foundation through service and, you know, volunteering in all kinds of ministry. But also, I'd like to say to them, you're on the ground floor of the next 25 years. As much as we celebrate our last 25, you get to celebrate in 25 years all the great things Eric has led this church into, and all the campus pastors, all the people who volunteer here, all the things that are going to happen for the next 25 years. You're a part of that.
It's an incredible story. Psalm 77, I'd like to just read it for us again. I'll remember the deeds of the Lord. I hope that video allowed you to do that. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. He's done that. I will consider all your works and meditate on all of your mighty deeds. What God has done here among us is incredibly mighty, and we get to be a part of it. And so for us to go back and remember, we got to go back to the beginning with, kind of 0 people, 0 services, 0 resources, and then 1 family, and then 1 Bible study in 1 small clubhouse, 1 first service in a garage, 1 first building, 1 baptism, and then on and on and on. Until today. Today, 5 campuses, this morning 11 services, hundreds of volunteers, hundreds of leaders, over 1,500 baptisms, and now millions of dollars given by the generous people here so that God's fame can continue to spread in this state. This is what God has chosen to do with us, and we get to celebrate his mighty deeds. And yet through all of it, the one desire remains, that we would just do whatever it takes to reach just 1 more. And I hope as you see that video that you would find yourself inside of the story now. And just like Paul said, that you would see yourself on the ground floor, picking up the torch and running with it for the next 25 years. As we look back to the past, God has given us so much evidence that he can be trusted and he will be faithful to build this with us and through us. And so we get to be a part of that now. And I hope today that brings you so much joy. Now, one story that Jesus told in the Gospel of Luke has really been a story that's formed so much of who we are as a church. And I want to read that story for us because it's this story that we're going to be studying for the next 3 weeks that really sets up for us this series of Welcome to the Party. It's in Luke chapter 15, and Jesus begins to tell a story, and the story goes like this. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger one said to his father, "Father, give me my share of the estate." So he divided his property between them. And not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living, wasted his father's love. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in the whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. And when he came to his senses, he said, "How many of my father's hired hands have food to spare? And here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him. He was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I'm no longer worthy to be called your son.' But the father said to his servants, 'Quick, bring the best robe, put it on him, put a ring on his finger, sandals on his feet, bring the fattened calf and kill it. Let's have a feast and celebrate.'" Welcome to the party, you guys. He goes on, "For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." So they began to celebrate. So this story, we're going to be studying it for the next 3 weeks, and really there are 3 main characters in the story. There's the younger brother, the prodigal son, the unrighteous one. Then there's the older brother, the older prodigal, and he's the self-righteous son. And then, of course, there's the father himself, who Tim Keller calls the picture of our prodigal God. The word prodigal is an important word. It's not a word we use a lot, but it really means extravagant. The word prodigal means extravagant, spending everything. And each of the 3 characters in the story were prodigal, just in their own way. Extravagant, spending everything, but in 3 different ways. Now, when you think of what makes life a party, I bet there's something that comes to mind for you. When we think of party, we all have some ideas that begin to fill our minds and hearts. When I think of a party, I think of joy. I think of gladness. I think of smiling. I think of connection, community. I think of relationship. I think of enjoying the people I'm with, enjoying elements of the party. In fact, as we press into a party, there are some parties where we have to perform and we have to be on display, and the introverts in the room are like, "Party, no thank you, But the best parties are the ones where we are fully known, where we are fully loved, where we can be ourselves and rejoice in the people who know us and love us. as we rejoice in those we know and those that we love. I want to say this, everyone has an idea of what makes life a party. Everyone has an understanding of what would contribute to life being a party, and I'm convinced that everybody's looking for that. Everybody's looking for the thing that will make them happy, pursuing the thing that will add delight into life and make life feel like a party. And some adults, they just never grow up because they are always still just looking for a party. And so the younger brother, he thought the party would be found in sort of the Vegas way of life, sex, drugs, and this all happened before rock and roll, but rock and roll, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. He thought the party was there. And then the older brother thought the party should be about him. He was the one who thought, because of my moral perfection, because of my performance, because of my self-righteous behavior, everybody should be throwing a party for me. Why him? And then there was the father, who knew that party was actually found in the unconditional love that existed in a relationship between a father and his son. The son could do nothing to ruin the father's love. The father would continue to love over and over again. He was the one who threw a party. So everyone has an idea of what makes life a party. Irreligion is assumed to be a party. I grew up with that thinking. I grew up thinking the party to life, if life was going to be happy, it was going to be found in irreligion separate from God. Irreligion is often thought of as a party. Religion, though, is just the opposite. Religion is seen as the opposite of a party. And if you grew up in religion, you grew up in church, you're like, party, I don't know about all of that. Religion is seen as the opposite of a party, but the gospel truly is a party. And what I mean by that is the gospel, the good news of Jesus, is that we are invited into a relationship, a joy-filled relationship with our Trinitarian God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, inviting us in to experience the joy, connection, and community of our Trinitarian God. And then we invite as many people as possible into the party as well, that they may experience delight and devotion too. The father knew that the party was about relationship. And so the younger brother, he thought he'd find a party, it led to ruin. The older brother refused the party, but the father threw the party, and they began to celebrate. And every Sunday at SMCC, we are celebrating in some way our God, who is full of joy, who has done great things for us in Jesus, our God who is worth celebrating. Now, the younger brother and the older brother, they kind of believed a lyric that wouldn't be written for some, few thousand years, but it's a lyric from the Beastie Boys. I know, the hard turn in the message. You didn't know the Beastie Boys were coming into this one today. The Beastie Boys once said this: you gotta fight for your right to. You guys get it. I thought about having the band play it today, but I thought that might be too much party for Draper, Utah. You gotta fight for your right to party. And the younger brother thought that. I'm gonna fight for the inheritance now, I'm gonna go spend it now, and I'm gonna find a party. It led to ruin. The older brother said, I've been fighting my whole life to be this moral, perfect person. Look at my behavior. Father, would you celebrate me? And so he was fighting for his right to party. Here's the thing, Jesus has already won the fight so that we can enjoy life with the God who made us. For the joy set before him, he endured the cross that we might be invited in to this relationship with our God, a relationship of joy, gladness, a relationship of rejoicing and celebration, the type of celebration we see in Old Testament feasts, the type of celebration we see in parables like this, and the type of celebration we see in the last book of the Bible, where the wedding supper of the Lamb, our celebration of King Jesus, is described as the best party one could ever imagine. Yeah. For Draper, Utah, that's some celebration right there. Good job. Good job. I want you to know this. Everyone is welcome to the party. Everyone is welcome to the party, including you. And whether your life looks more like the younger brother or the older brother, God loves the real you. And when you turn to him, he celebrates and he rejoices. And so as a church leadership team, we are working on a strategic vision that's going to take us into the future. And we will communicate that as the months and this year unfolds, but it's all themed welcome to the party, because we want to invite as many people as possible to experience delight in their devotion to a Trinitarian God who has invited us in to a community that can be described as a party. So when the Robies moved to Utah, some said it looked reckless. It's too risky. You were told it couldn't be done. And yet, they didn't see it as risky. They didn't see it as extravagant, prodigal. They saw it as the proper response to a God who had already given everything for them. It was their joy to come here and do this. And so may that inspire us. May we continue to be a prodigal church, doing whatever it takes, taking risks, making sacrifices, doing extravagant things to create environments that make it easy for people to turn to God, removing all barriers so that people can take their next step in a place where they can belong before they believe. So the question I want to leave you with is this question right here. Would you say yes, like so many before us, to do whatever it takes to reach just one more? The Robies, they did that. It was their pleasure to do so for just one more and just one more. May we pick up that torch. May we carry that baton to do whatever it takes to reach just one more and one more and one more. And I hope that by looking to the past today, you would find yourself in the story, that it would strengthen you in the present to see you are a part of this, and that would motivate you for the future. When we look to the past, we see that God has been faithful and he will continue to be faithful. So we have reason to celebrate him now, and we have reason to welcome as many people as possible to the party.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's message and trusting us with your time. If you'd like to connect with one of our pastors or staff, you can easily do that by visiting smccutah.org/connect. When you fill out that quick form, they will get back to you within a few days and be able to connect with you. As well, if you'd like to know more about taking a next step at SMCC, you can easily look at what next steps we have by visiting smccutah.org/next steps. And lastly, if you found today's message both hopeful and helpful, I would encourage you to do maybe one of two things. First, you can share this message with someone that would find it helpful. And you can also choose to partner with us financially so that more people can see messages like this. You can find more information on what that looks like by visiting smccutah.org/give. Again, thank you for joining us today, and I hope to see you at one of our locations soon.